Hello, all of you. This is Dr. Ravi from Changwon National University, working with mechatronics and mechanical engineering department. Basically, I came to here to discuss about a narration of a research lecture or a research story, how we can narrate, how we can conclude, and how we can pass, how we can hook, and how we can make audience to attract our lecture. That is very important for the globally. People always looking at how we deliver the lecture, in what concept and what criteria we are delivering a lecture that can be useful to the society, that can be useful for the students, or that can be useful for the business people or global inter relations. So many business lectures or international lectures or TED lectures used to pass through many lecturers or professors or contemporary people, but sometimes we miss the concept, we miss the subject, we miss the real content, how we can deliver a lecture and why we digress or why we'll divert the original topic to the other areas. That is the problem we used to facing in the society. So many people used to sit in front of the media or TV, but they used to discuss on a particular topic when they start, but automatically they will digress and they will fight each other and finally make into a bizarre. So these concepts or these important factors, when you consider, those mistakes we can evaluate, those mistakes we can avoid, those mistakes we can overcome through practice and through number of times giving the lectures, then only we can come out those problems. So here I would like to say something, a story narration tips. There are 8 tips have been reported in the literature. Of course, many tips are there, but I choose only 8 tips, which are mainly choose the appropriate time and audience, and use a hook to engage the listener, and keep concise here. Keep concise the topic and highlight emotional elements, and don't rush to the topic. You have to go with time and poke fun at yourself and nobody else, and vary your rate of speech and volume, and ask listeners to imagine how you deliver your lecture and how much content they understood after your lecture. These are the factors you have to consider while giving a lecture before in front of the or before many audience. Here you can see, choose the appropriate time and audience. For example, you choose an audience or you have selected a students of a group, those group having a mathematics lecturer, and you need to give a lecture on mathematics, but you choose history people. How they listen? They should not listen your topic because they don't understand what is mathematics. It should be very difficult to understand, also sit with you. And second, if you go this material, for example, before you start writing your presentation, think about these points. Mainly, what are the most interesting part in your topic? How highlight, how attract your topic should be for the audience, and how much will audience know about your topic or my topic. So when you give a lecture, how much percentage, for example, you are giving some chemistry lecture, how much quantity or how much percentage of the lecture or topics they should be understood or they know about you, then only they will be go with. And what level do I target it at? And which member of the audience will most likely be disinterested. So for example, you are taking a group of people, the group of people having a different subjects like history people, literature people, mathematics people, science people, mechanical engineering, computer science. All of the group have been sit in front of you, but some of them only attract you because your subject know by some of them from the group. So you have to select such people, very important, and they have to be followed very carefully. How can I help them learn and understand my topic? So you have to give a feedback to them before you start a lecture. That lecture should be very important and they should be understand very carefully what you are going to talk. And what is the size of audience? So you should select number of audience. For example, 50 member, 30 member, 20 member should be enough for your lecture to understand. You should not take too many people, or you should not fill all the auditorium to listen your lecture. That may not be a good for your lecture. But in political lecture should be needed too many people, because the countless people should be attended for the political lectures. But in the case of business, or in the case of science, or in the case of research, or in the case of subject to topic, the audience should be precise and very number. You need to take this a small number of people, or some fixed amount of the people should be present for your lecture. And going to the topic here, use a hook to engage the listener. So for example, you are telling a subject which is unknown to the many people, but you have to make it interest on audience and hook them. So you have to pull them, you have to catch them very strongly, and they can only follow your lecture very carefully. And keep it concise. You should not elaborate too much of information at a particular time. You should concise, and you should make all the information and make into a small concise information. You should not teach all the book in 1 hour. You should teach one A4 page. That should be informative, that should be concise, and that should be trimmed. Then only it will be attractive, your lecture, for the audience. And you can see here, highlight emotional elements. See, many people definitely connect to the emotion. So you should make emotion, you should create emotion to connect your lecture very strongly, and they can keep your lecture imprint in their mind, and they can strongly make into a remembrance of your lecture. And there are 3 key elements of emotion, which are mainly subjective experience, psychological response, and a behavioral response. So these 3 important factors you have to select, and you should promote that kind of element for the catching of emotion. Then only audience can be connected very strongly to the lecture. And don't rush. When you give a lecture, you should not rush anymore. You should go with proper time. You should go with fixed movement of words. You can spell out, and you can give a keywords. Those keywords will be helpful. And if you tell very rush, and if you tell very fast, they should not understand your lecture, what is going to be, and the content will be digress, and finally it will not be going to the success. And poke fun at yourself and nobody else. So when you give a lecture, you should make a fun on yourself, or myself. When I give a lecture, I should make a fun on myself. Don't give any fun on audience, because audience will become enemy to you when you give a lecture during making a fun. So the fun should be very, very important. That can be strong on yourself, and you should make a neutral examples that make fun for everyone. You should not focus on one particular audience. They should offend about your lecture, and they won't give any points, or they won't give any merit to your lecture in the future. And vary your rate of speech and volume. When you give a lecture, you should vary. The intensity should be low, high, and medium. So you should go like that. So first you should go with a particular word, and you should present, or you should spell out very strongly. But some words should be very slowly you have to speak. Some words should be delivered very fast with high energy. So the tempo should be maintained with the time and the words. Then only it will be balanced to go with the speech. And volume. The volume also very important. You should not speak very low voice, or you should not speak very high voice. When you meet an audience, the audience should be listened from the last bench to the first bench with equal frequency and audibility. That audibility is very important. That is called volume. So this volume very important for giving a lecture. That lecture should be helpful to understand by the audience. And this is the very last and very important one. Ask listeners to imagine. After finishing your lecture, you should give a time for 2 minutes or 5 minutes and ask them how was your lecture, and how have been they experienced, and how was their experience, and how they wanted to give a feedback from your lecture. And you should take a merit from your lectures information. This is very, very important for any lecturer from the audience. And you can see here attention getting beginning. For example, if you finish a lecture, you should ask several questions, like ask a question that may be a subjective question or that may be intermediary between the subject and your lecture, and give a surprising fact. You should show some surprising fact to your lecture, and you can imagine that lecture for the audience and tell an interesting or surprising story. While giving a lecture, you should give some inspiration from your lecture, and they should understand what you have been or what you have been delivered a lecture that will be useful for them or not, they will decide. And ask listeners to imagine something. After finishing your lecture, you should ask them to imagine how was your lecture, and any feedback I need to take from you, or any suggestions or any advice given by them, that is also very important from you to go into the your career into the top level. And repeat a famous quotation. Sometimes after finishing a lecture, you should give a famous quotation that should be very helpful to your career as well as audience also. Blindly remember your topic very strong enough, and they can be used and they can be understand your lecture very strongly, and they can be useful. Why I am giving this topic today? Because I am going to give a different subjects in the future. They should be understand from computer science, or they should be understand from mathematics, or they can be understand from the mechanical engineering, nanotechnology, biotechnology, bio-nanotechnology, and chemomechanical engineering, chemoelectronics, chemistry, fundamental chemistry and organic chemistry, and nano medicine, nano materials. These topics are very important for the listeners from me. So in the future I will give delivering a lecture very often, and that will be concise to 10 minutes, because I should not give more than 10 minutes, and the uploading problem also there for the YouTube. This lecture will be useful in the future, and the story narration is very, very important from the any lecturer or any professor or any inspirer who is delivering a lecture. Those are very important points you can understand from the these 8 facts. So thank you for my brief introduction about the story narration, and I will provide very beautiful lectures in the future for your understanding. And also you should enlarge, or you should imagine, or you should educate, or you should inspire by yourself through my lectures in the future. It can be very helpful to the society, and as well as it can be helpful to the students, researchers and contemporary researchers with me, and the scientists who really need my subject. They can be follow me in the future through my YouTube channel. So that is Ravi's Media YouTube channel. I can provide all the information on and off, so you can follow me. Thank you for listening my lecture. I hope I will deliver a good lectures in the future. I practice myself, and I will deliver a information that should be very useful, and that should be very commendable and useful to the society. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding and attention, and also your time. Bye. This is your Ravi. Seeing me